Hey guys, it's Sonia and welcome back to my channel. Today it's yet another video on limerence and specifically how can you tell if you are limerent. So I've been receiving a lot of questions over the past couple of weeks and months with people like asking me, I have this particular sign or symptom. Is it limerence or is it something else? And I have that, I'm going through that thing right now. Is it limerence or is it a crush or is it something else? So I thought, I could just clear the air a little bit and outline what I think are the 12 key signs that signs of limerence, right? And you can just take this as like a quick checklist of sorts in case you're kind of confused over what you're experiencing right now. So I thought to go into detail a little bit in this video. Before we jump into the signs, I just kind of want to recap on what exactly is limerence. And limerence was actually coined by this very, very lovely psychologist called Dorothy Tanoff. Okay, many, many years ago. I think it was in the 1960s or 70s, where people weren't really paying attention to subjects like love and limerence and relationships. It wasn't really a focus of society back then. And she coined this thing called limerence after studying many, many people. And their experiences with their crushes, which didn't feel like crushes, it felt like something else. So to her, the definition of limerence is an uncontrollable, biologically determined, inherently irrational, instinct-like reaction, which is intrusive and invades our consciousness against our will. Now, if you're watching this video, you would probably relate to like the entire definition, right? Because limerence is, yeah, it's uncontrollable, it's intrusive, it happens as and when it feels like we can't stop it, right? And this is also why it makes it so hard to actually break out of the cycle of limerence. So if you're experiencing this, okay, then what you're going through is probably limerence, but we will kind of talk about the 12 signs in the next couple of slides. And actually, you'll find like all these signs in my book as well, which I will link in the description box below, and I go into a bit more detail there. The signs are a combination of my own studies of myself, my clients, people that come to me with numerous issues, as well as what Dorothy Tanoff also kind of outlined in her own studies back in the 60s and the 70s. So you will see like the symptoms have actually persisted over a couple of decades. It hasn't really changed. So the very first sign is an intense longing or obsession for your limerent object that is incredibly intrusive. Okay, you'll find that you have random intrusive thoughts about your LO or limerent object throughout the entire day that comes into your head. No rhyme or reason, it just comes in. It is hard to let go of those thoughts and it feels like a constant, intense obsession. Okay, and in extreme cases, it can be so intrusive that you cannot even live your life properly. You cannot do stuff, you cannot eat, you cannot sleep. Okay, and the thoughts and obsession can be all consuming and take up a very huge part of your mind and your day. Sometimes it's something that you personally do not want to let go of because the thoughts are very pleasurable and very exciting. It's like escapism, right? And escapism is really essentially what limerence is all about. So this intense longing, usually a sign, okay, that limerence is something that you're experiencing. The second sign is that your fantasies about your limerent object, they only exist in your head. Okay, so many times your limerent object is someone that you actually do not really know in person. Okay, they could be a celebrity, they could be someone that is actually not available for you. Okay, in whatever way. Okay, either they are taken, they are married, they are attached, um, they do not know you, or they actually have rejected you before. So much of your thoughts about them only exist as fantasies in your head, and they do not really move into reality because of the fact that the person is just not available, not physically and not emotionally available. So, limerence is a very mental exercise. Okay, it just exists in your mind. The third sign is the emotional volatility, which is very dependent on your limerent object. So, for example, if your limerent object smiles at you or talks to you, okay, if you know them in person, you feel like you're in heaven. Okay, like this euphoric high, this intense excitement, okay, that nothing else can compare to, right? Um, And if they do not smile at you or you do not experience any sort of interactions, between the both of you in a positive manner, you are incredibly down and upset. Okay, and these moods can go up and down the entire day, and they can affect your being and your life, right? Because all you're thinking about is like, what is he or she doing, and how am I reacting to it? And this emotional volatility is also quite draining. And having experienced it myself, it just takes a lot out of you, okay, emotions and energy wise, okay. And the fourth sign, okay, for a limerent person, there's always a very, very deep desire for reciprocation from the limerent object. Because ultimately, what you wish for is for your limerent object to reciprocate the feelings that you have for them and to think of you and to treat you the same way that you do to them. Okay, at least that is what you feel you need. And many times, limerents are unable to deal with reciprocation in personal reality because it is just way too overwhelming. Okay. Although it's something that you may desire mentally and emotionally, sometimes when you come face to face with your limerent object, it's just so difficult to even be yourself. Something which I'll talk about in another sign later on as well. This is also why limerence always remains as a sort of mental exercise and a fantasy because when you are in your fantasy, state, your liminal object can behave in whatever way they want. You also can behave in whatever way you want, and you can live your happily ever after, right? But in reality, it's always very different, and this is why sometimes that deep desire for reciprocation it doesn't come about as easily. And the next sign, a certain incapacitating shyness around your limerent object. And having felt being like that before, it truly is incapacitating because I feel like I always cannot speak, I cannot be myself around my limerent object, the person that I like. And there's a sense of like freezing up and feeling like, you cannot really be yourself, and you start filtering out your speech and your actions, and you kind of shrink up, yeah, you're just like frozen. So whenever you are experiencing that, it could be a massive crush, but taken together with the other signs, it could also mean that you are, in a limerent state. And the sixth sign number six, an intense fear of rejection by your limerent object. So earlier on, we have an intense, need for reciprocation, but at the same time, we are also very fearful of rejection. A lot of limerent people actually experience this in their lives. So your limerent object, you might have this intense fear that your limerent object actually does not like you, may not like you, or will reject you if they haven't already. Um, this also lends itself to the fact that the thought of being with your limerent object is so overwhelming that you do not even contemplate it because yeah, you have this deep desire for reciprocation from them, but you are also deathly afraid that they will actually say no to you and your entire world will collapse, or at least it feels that way, right? So staying in your fantasies and in your head, that's always the safest and the best place to be because that is where your limerent object will never reject you, and they will always reciprocate whatever you have for them. So the intense fear of rejection is something that keeps this crush or these feelings that you have for a limerent object limerent, because you are just you fear rejection, and at the same time you wouldn't want to express yourself that much, so you just keep it to yourself and keep it in your fantasies. Sign number seven. Okay, so there's this interesting ability to deny anything negative about your limerent object. So you cherry pick the traits that you actually want to focus on about them. So a lot of limerent people, they see their limerent object as someone who is like perfect. Okay. Perfect, can do no wrong, is the perfect looking, best looking guy or girl in the world, the best person to ever exist. And even if you do see flaws and imperfections, you deny it and you treat it as like kind of like a one off, or you go to the extent of denying its existence. Believe me, I've seen this before, and this actually happens a lot with fans who are fans of celebrities. Okay. Because yeah, in the fan celebrity relationship, I use relationship very loosely here. There's a lot of limerence actually that's being experienced by the fan. So in your eyes, your limerent object can never be able to be such a flawed human being. Okay, it's impossible because you will never like a flawed human being, right? Um, Another clue over here is that when you describe them or you think about them, you only think of the best parts of them. Okay, those qualities are then amplified and treated as the entirety of the person. So this creates an unrealistic perspective of your limerent object. Okay, does this sound familiar? Because it's exactly how some fans actually see their celebrities. I mean, if you're in the K-pop world, which I previously was from as well, and if you are just like fans of like like just normal music groups or like actors and things like that, you would see that behavior quite a bit in forums, where people are just like completely in denial that um their celebrity of choice or their idol is like can do no wrong. And when supposedly like not great news comes out about the person, the celeb, you'll see a lot of fans like experiencing massive cognitive dissonance in the comments. And that is actually a sign that you are not seeing the person as a complete person. You're just seeing the good things or you're just seeing certain things about them. And this also lends to the fact that, limerence actually is not, I say this in other videos as well. Like people always ask me, is limerence love? It isn't, because in love, you kind of mostly see the person's good and bad sides and you accept all of it. But in limerence, you just cannot accept, or you cannot even see or allow yourself to see the negative stuff. Okay, and the next sign, an intense aching in the heart or gut area when there is uncertainty. Pay attention to this sensation next time when you are, if you're in a limerent state and your limerent objects around. Whenever you feel like there's some sort of uncertainty in the dynamic between you guys, you're unsure of what they are feeling or what they're doing in the moment, you will experience a sinking feeling in your heart or your gut area. Okay, and how that feels is that there's queasiness, uneasiness, anxiety. There could be like heart pounding. You can feel like maybe there's something in your stomach that is dropping, or this very, very weird feeling in the pits of your stomach. Okay, and sometimes with these feelings, it is intensified alongside certain behaviors like social media stalking. And sometimes you look at pictures and stuff like that and you feel a little bit better. So, and sometimes also going back to the point of reciprocation, the aches and the intense aching and the longing and the pains and all that, it goes away when you perceive some form of reciprocation. Okay, and what I mean by perceive is that it's just a perception, so it's not really something that is really happening sometimes. Okay, so pay attention to this sensation because I find that it happens really, really often when you are in a limerent state. The next sign, a feeling of walking on air when there is reciprocation. Okay, this is similar to the euphoric feelings when there is perceived reciprocation. Um, some neutral or slightly positive behavior can actually be interpreted very easily as romantic interest from your limerent object, and this euphoric feeling doesn't really last long. Okay, the minute there is something perceived as not so great that happens in the interaction between you guys, it will be accompanied by an emotional low. And why I pick this sign as like a standalone sign of like walking on air is because this feeling of euphoria, you rarely experience it in other parts of your life. You rarely experience it in life, which is why it stands out so much, and which is why limerence as a cycle is so difficult to break, because these euphoric feelings are the ones that are giving you that dopamine hit and causing a lot of changes in your neurochemistry. So whenever you see your limerent object, there's a dopamine high, and you keep needing to like to kind of like see him and to talk to him and to do whatever, to fantasize about him. So it's this dopamine high and walking on air feeling that makes it so difficult for your brain to actually cut limerence out of your life. And this is why I picked this, because it's a very, very huge contributor to the cycle just carrying on and people not being able to heal from their limerence. The next sign is a fleeting relief when imagining that your limerent object has reciprocated your behavior or your feelings. So feelings of relief, okay, imagining that your limerent object is treating you positively or displaying romantic interest in you. this can be almost at the level of euphoric high that's experienced when interacting with the LO in person, but it also is slightly different in a sense that this is kind of like a check. Okay, what do I mean by check? So when you imagine, sometimes you perhaps you haven't had much interaction with a liminal object, or maybe he does something and you're kind of like questioning whether you really like him or not. And then when you kind of go back into your fantasies, because remember, limerence is a very mental exercise, very fantasy based sort of interaction. um and you fantasize about you guys kind of like getting along and being all lovey-dovey or whatever it is. There's like feelings of like relief just flooding your nervous system, flooding your body, and you calm down a lot. It's a way of calming down your anxiety. So you just imagine a scenario where everything is okay. um yeah, so that's what this sign is about. The next one is an intensification through adversity. And what do I mean by this? So, whenever there is a barrier blocking you from your limerent object, okay, like if they do not know or like you at the moment, they are like in another country, um, you don't, those things are not things that will make you want to give up on them at all, right? In fact, you feel an intense determination to see the difficulty through. You see it as a challenge to overcome, and that this is also what makes limerence very difficult to get to let go of. Besides the dopamine reactions, whenever you experience like intense difficulty or barriers in your relationship, and I say this with quotation marks and I use it very loosely, it further spurs you on. You see this as a challenge that spurs you on to kind of keep hanging onto your limerent object. Um, Making it harder to break free of the cycle. Okay, notice this symptom as well, because this symptom is not really much talked about, but it's something that is very much present in limerence. And the very last sign, okay, at least for me, is that you're hyper vigilant to any shred of evidence that has your LO reciprocating your behavior, right? For example, an ability to think of reasons that explains your LO's neutral or negative behavior. Some limerents even collect a document of evidence of reciprocation. Okay, the neutral negative behavior just makes you more determined to see it through, as in like sign number 11. And anytime you feel like your kind of your limerence, like whatever feelings are fading or whatever it is, when I was still limerent myself, I would actually open my document of evidence of reciprocation, perceived reciprocation, and I would actually look through them and actually feel happy. So the feelings of relief again will flood my body, and I will feel like I will imagine all sorts of things, and I'll feel really really happy by myself. Okay, so you are very very hyper vigilant to that. If your liminal object is someone that you actually see around your school or your office or whatever, you'll find that you're always observing them, like, and reading a lot into their actions. Okay, that's the tricky part, because sometimes you may think that your liminal object actually likes you back, but actually people can tell that you are staring or observing them a lot. Yeah, I used to think that I was not very obvious, but actually it's very obvious. And sometimes people are just like kind of, checking you out to see like what is going on. And it's not because like they are interested. But as a limerent person, you kind of always see any sort of interaction as, as perceived romantic interest. So yeah, do you resonate with any of the 12 signs? Okay. I bet that a lot of you actually resonate with most of it. Okay. And if you are, it means that you're probably limerent, and struggling through it alone can sometimes be quite tough. Okay. And just a very, very gentle reminder at this point is that limerence is actually a journey. Okay, and a lot of what I teach my clients is that there's this model that I actually follow, that I get them to kind of like go through. The very first part, which is where we are at now, is a diagnosis, where we kind of ask questions of ourselves. Why you limerent, what caused it, what you want to do. And the next part about the healing, is all about strengthening your sense of self, because for a lot of limerent people, they're not really showcasing or showing up as themselves. They are kind of always hiding from the world, and when they hide their affections and their interests and stuff like that as well. Okay, so this is all about strengthening your sense of self. And then, once all that is healed, then you kind of live a life that you really want and start attracting a love that you actually want. A reciprocal love, because this love that you attract will be someone that actually genuinely loves you and genuinely likes you, and not, it's just not just someone existing in your fantasies. And if you need further help, with your limerent stuff that you're going through, I know that it's difficult because I've been through it for years myself before I finally cured. You can grab my book. It's linked in the description box down below, and also my one-on-one coaching slash therapy sessions are actually open now. You can book through the link down in the description box as well. And I really want you to get better. I really want you to feel better. And if you feel that any of these resources are something that you actually really want to take right now, don't hesitate. Limerence can be actually sometimes very difficult to, like I said, probably said so many times in this video, very difficult to break free of. So if you need that help and you need someone to hold your hand and get you through the process, please reach out. Um, yeah, I'm always here for you. So with this, I hope this video was helpful, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you so much.